Hello and you're very welcome to the JMOC podcast. I'm Cavan. Of course, the podcast is brought to you by Orgarich.com and Atak.ie. Use promo code JMOC podcast to get 15% off on Orgarich.com. Get the best games, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And today I'm joined by former Cavan footballer Ronan Flanagan to talk about the Cavan and Westmeath Tall Cup final and the ins and outs of it. And Cavan just came up short against a very, very good Westmeath team, it must be said. So, yeah, we're going to be licking our wounds now until January at this stage, Ronan, if you think about it. So it's the season's over. But anyway, how are you keeping?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Good. I'm back in Cavan. So, yeah, all good. Yeah, just as you said yourself there, unfortunately, we can't fix it until we get back at football again in the McKenna Cup and the National League. But all in all, a great year. Okay, the last game didn't go according to plan, but yeah, good year. Good year for Cavan.
Yeah, well, generally it definitely was, and I suppose it just came up short against a very much inspired Westmeath team that looked like they had meant business from minute one. Really, I think it was a great performance by them, and I think they should really take great confidence. I suppose we can touch on to the game. What impressed you most about this Westmeath performance, Ronan?
As we talked about last week, I feared if they got ball that they would cause the problems, that they were well able to run it against Offaly. They showed that once they got the kick out of the way, they were really, really good, and they were purposeful in their runs. They were penetrative runs, I suppose, coming from deep. And then they also had a forward line to kind of complement that, and that they were able to score points at ease. Ronan O'Toole, John Heslin. Then even on the weekend, we had the man Duncan, he kick. Sam McCartan, sorry.
Sam McCartan, yeah.
McCartan kicked 3 points. Luke Loughlin, I think, got a point each half. Dolan got the goal. So yeah, no, they have a nice forward line. And again, as I said, we were just fearful last week that if they got lots of ball, that we'd eventually struggle with it. And I felt that we didn't go after them enough. Yeah, we might have pushed up, but it wasn't with a real intent. And as a result, I think Westmeath had 23 kickouts and they won all 23, which is a clear indication that we obviously didn't really go after them properly. If you look at Galway and Derry, Derry initially were chipping the ball away short, and next thing you know, they're 3 points ahead. After about 20-25 minutes, Galway put an end to that. They pushed right up. They put 4 or 5 players into full forward line, constantly moving, waving their arms, putting Oran Lynch from Derry, the goalkeeper, under immense pressure that he couldn't actually chip the ball short. And as a result, he was kicking the ball to a contest. And that's what I was trying to emphasise last week. We needed Westmeath to kick the ball out to a contest. We have Thomas Galligan. We have Goroge McKiernan. We have James Smith. We have Killian Clark. We have monsters of men. But them monsters weren't being utilised by Cavan because we weren't putting enough pressure on the kick out. Therefore, not every, but the majority of plays that Westmeath had were running plays. There weren't contests, which would have suited us, I think, an awful lot better. They were chipping the ball 30, 40 yards, 20 yards at times, and running the whole end of the pitch and end up in scores. And it was just too easy, in my opinion. I'd have been really focusing, like Galway were after 25 minutes, on putting so much pressure that the Westmeath goalkeeper, Jason Daly, would have had to go long. He would have no choice but to kick the ball long. And even if it meant we got caught once or twice, once or twice in the grand scheme of things, as opposed to 23 times. And that's where I feel that, like people said after the match, that Cavan lacked energy and all these kind of things. But yeah, maybe they did a little bit. But of course you're going to lack energy if you keep giving them the ball, because you're going to be chasing them all the time. So it's very hard to have energy when you're not turning over the ball high up. Any turnovers we got were in our defence. We never got the ball off them in their forward line. And I think had we got turnovers up front, or had we got balls at midfield breaking forward, like Thomas Galligan would say, coming onto a ball, or Goroge coming onto a ball, then it's a different game. Westmeath have an awful lot more to deal with. Every attack that Westmeath dealt with us, they were back waiting for us. And as you said before we come on air, it was kind of slow. It was ponderous, our attack, and we struggled to break down their mass defence. So to me, the system really, really hurt us the weekend. I wouldn't necessarily put all the blame on the players. I know some people might be, but I wouldn't. I would be thinking that had we got that system right, had we really, really gone after his kick out like Galway did to Oran Lynch, then I think we would have had a different result and a different game on Saturday last, where the ball would have been kicked to midfield. We would have had our physically strong men contesting, and I think coming out on top ahead of the Westmeath lads.
Yeah, no, Ronan, that's probably the outgoing emotion by all Cavan fans, I suppose, really. And like it definitely was frustrating, kind of looking on from our positions in the stand, because obviously you feel like there's obviously so much more in these Cavan lads. And like, don't get me wrong, as I said to you last week, like it is an unbelievable time to be playing, for the Cavan team, and obviously we've all the coaches in place and everything in place, but just at times, Ronan, like it just really did feel like we were so ponderous up front, and we have some unbelievable forwards. And I know Conor Madden and Cormac O'Reilly were brought on the last 2 minutes, like, but I just think for the way the game was going, that maybe we should have been brought on earlier, Ronan, as well. So it's just probably it's a mixture of emotion after the game, really. It really is.
Yeah, like I can vividly see in the first half where Cian Madden was making runs, and even James Smith and Paddy Lynch were making runs, and to be honest, the ball wasn't coming in. We weren't looking to kick the ball to our players. I can see Cian Madden with about 20 yards of space, his player 20 yards behind him, and our player out the pitch didn't kick on the ball, turned back and hand passed it back inside. And every time you do that, you're giving Westmeath a chance to get further back, and as a result, attacks become slower and slower and slower. I thought Paddy Lynch, to be fair to him, was in good form, really good form.
He was brilliant.
We just didn't give him enough ball. Like, he wasn't been given the ball in the full forward line, and he, as I said, he had made a few breaks where he could have got the ball and just never came. I thought Westmeath did a brilliant job on James Smith, and they did exactly what we were talking last week. Every game so far, James has been on a mismatch because he's been probably marking a cornerback. They put their fullback, their captain, onto James because they realised how good James actually is, and he man-marked him, and he went with him, and he broke every ball. He was bigger than James. He was able to jump. So we probably should have been a little bit smarter in our managerial team and said, okay, well, James has been marked by Kevin Maguire. Why doesn't James pull Kevin out towards midfield, and why don't they drift in Thomas and see, will Kevin go with Thomas? And if he doesn't, then we definitely have a mismatch. As I said, Paddy Lynch was on good form. He just wasn't getting enough ball. And it could have been another situation where if James had to bring Kevin Maguire out the pitch, leave Paddy in 1-on-1 with the smaller cornerback. Paddy's a big man. He was well able to win ball. He's in great form. We didn't seem to ask the questions, I didn't feel, of Westmeath. And it didn't help, I suppose, that the players weren't kicking in the ball to our full forward line. So I suppose a combination of both things, really.
Yeah, like I suppose it kind of did go to show, like, in Christ, Paddy Lynch's score in the first half, he was just completely in the corner and he just swung his right foot at it. It was probably from the tightest angle in Croke Park, and it just kind of did go to show if we did get the ball to him, he definitely would have done damage. So I suppose maybe, I don't know, as I alluded to, like bringing on the likes of Conor Madden and Cormac O'Reilly in the last 2 minutes, maybe if them lads were brought on earlier or potentially even started the game, because I think obviously Martin O'Reilly was only brought on, you kind of Conor Moyne like at wing half forward, like, but you seen maybe Killian Brady going up to like the full forward position, running up and down, but like it beggared belief at times, Ronan.
Yeah, that comes where Killian drives, let's say, comes running from the defence to the forward line. That comes when you're doing a slow attack. And as I said, all too often, unfortunately, but the majority of our attacks were slow because Westmeath were getting short kick-outs, because we weren't getting our turnovers until our defence. That meant that Westmeath could get back before the ball, and we were slow and ponderous as a result of that. They also offered up a lot of our kick-outs. They gave us kind of short kick-outs. Again, which meant they were able to wait for us by the time we got up. And it's definitely one area of our game where we struggle is when teams are back waiting for us. We find it hard to penetrate them. And to be fair to Killian, he was probably just trying to provide another outlet so we could actually break lines. Yeah, it's not ideal. It's not the way I would want Cavan to play, because I don't think it suits us. We're not, as I said, we're not that good at breaking down mass defences. So I think we need to go after teams to cause them problems where they have to kick the ball to contests. We win the contest. Now we're running at the goal. They're not set up. We get easier scores. And Cavan have typically over the last 3, 4, 5 years been really, really good when we win opposition kickouts. But as I said, 23 kickouts Westmeath. We never won one. where can you get your energy from if you're not winning those kickouts? Like you're getting your energy from your full back line, your half back line, where you get your turnovers. But look at the length of the pitch you have to travel in order to even get a score. It was just, and Westmeath, I suppose, weren't throwing everybody into attack. They always had probably one or two back, even if it didn't go right. So they weren't totally committed. And again, when they attacked, more often than not, they attack with an awful lot of pace coming from width. I can see Ronan Wallace, the red-haired fella, number 6. How often did he break lines? And he was absolutely flying.
He was brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, so it meant that he was drawing defenders to him, and then he could pass the ball. And I know he missed the ball across for a goal chance in the first half, but he definitely drew 2, if not 3 Cavan players to him because of the speed he was coming at. Had that pass gone to hand, Westmeath could have had a goal chance. Probably should have had a goal chance. The last play of the game, I can see him again. He broke off the outside of his player. He got laid off the ball, and he's gone straight through. He could have went for a goal, and Raymond, he just fisted the ball over the bar. He was doing that regularly, to be fair to him. He wasn't the only one, but he was definitely putting a serious pace into their attacks. And I don't know if we had that same pace coming from our half back line forward. We got great scores from our wing half forwards. Again, to be fair to Jared Smith and Oisin Kiernan, 4 points from half forward line is brilliant scoring. 3 again from Jared and 1 from Oisin. We just probably didn't get enough from maybe the 2 other wing half backs. The midfield, we didn't get anything coming from the midfield. Now, in saying that, Jack Cooney and his management team were excellent. Like, the man marked are probably our 3 most influential players: James Smith, Rose McKiernan, and Thomas Galligan. And James was marked by Kevin Maguire. Groves was marked by David Lynch, the wing half forward, who never left his side, hopped off him at any chance he could. And then you had the number 22. What was his name? Was he Duncan? Sam Duncan?
Sam Duncan, yeah.
Yeah, he was on Thomas. And again, he was just hopping off Thomas. And it's not a coincidence that those 3 players for us didn't really get into the game. Like, to be fair to Groves, he got 2 chances in the first half, kicked 2 great points off his right foot.
Yeah, he was good in the first half, yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't as involved as we'd like him to be. He's so influential for us. We wanted him more, probably coming onto the ball and getting more shots away. And to be fair to them, they had the man marker on him, and every time he got the ball, there was a second, if not a third fella coming in on top of him. And they were putting serious pressure. So to be fair to the Westmeath management team, they definitely did their homework on us, and they realised the 3 big men up our middle and how important they were.
Yeah, and I was making that point to you last week, and I know Grode was kind of drifting around the midfield area and the half-back area again, and I don't know, maybe it's just that maybe more from Grode's influence in terms of, the ball's not kind of coming through the middle channel, so do I have to kind of dip out? Like, and I don't know, is he been told to do that? Like, he's so far out from the goal, and as you rightly said last week, you need him just kind of getting into them scoring positions. In the first half, you did definitely see him doing that, but in the second half, you didn't, and it's just... kind of watching on, it just seems to be the same tactics in the last couple of games, Ronan, which definitely won't win you many games.
Yeah, like as I said last week, Groves is a brilliant player, but he's only really effective when he's close to the opposition goal because he can kick off both feet. He's powerful. I suppose in some ways going forward for Groves, if Groves has been man marked, which he always is, to be fair to him, and if he feels that a second and third fella are coming along all the time, maybe it's time to drift him in towards the full forward line. Like, he definitely had 4 or 5 inches on the fella he was marking. Now, your man, he's not little, obviously he's bigger than I am, the 12, David Lynch, he was bouncing off him all the time and always annoying him in his face. But you put a ball into the full forward line, into Groves, and he wins the mark. That's it. Then they're going to realise, okay, there's a mismatch there. Groves is 6'5", the man David Lynch is 6 foot. We can't leave him on him. Groves is going to be able to win the ball out in front of him. He's going to get 1 or 2 marks. They might switch Kevin Maguire onto him then. And it just, you're asking questions. I don't feel like we asked enough questions when we're being man marked. Like, James remained in it at a full forward for an awful lot of that game with Kevin Maguire on him. Groves stayed at centre half forward with David Lynch on him. Like, I think it's definitely an option to throw Groves when he's been so tightly marked. Put him into full forward, especially when he's on a smaller fella, and say to him, right, let's see how you can defend in here. put 1 or 2 balls in the top of him. Groge is brilliant in the air. As I said, he's too good. Like, we're not really using him to the best of our ability. As you said, he ends up having to drift back because there's so many defenders.
The whole time.
He gets on ball, which is not as effective as it could be for Groge. He's too good.
But it's simple as this, though, Ronan. Like, we've seen him even for Cavan Gales in the last 2 championships. Like, they've played him in the half-forward line, the full forward line. I think he scored, was it a couple of goals? Was it against yourselves last year in the championship? Or, like, he just absolutely made hay when the man is close up front and, like, in front of the goal. Like, he is a man mountain. He's nearly the equivalent of the Michael Murphy to us. Like, it's common sense at the best times too, Ronan.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Like, you're right. It was against us, unfortunately, against Cavan. And to be fair to Cavan, they have tried him inside a few times in a full forward. And his best position probably is out the pitch coming onto the ball. I do agree with that. But sometimes in games, when you're so tightly man-marked, you have to mix it up. Like, David Lynch was probably licking his lips thinking Groge McKiernan is actually going the wrong way. He's going away from the goal.
Yeah.
If Groge had been told, bring him into the full forward line, then David Lynch would have been sweating because he's wearing number 12. I don't know the fella at all, but I imagine he's either a half-back, half-forward. He's definitely not a full-back player. You're putting him in a position where he doesn't want to be. Groge is already probably 4 or 5 inches taller than he is. I just think you have to start asking more questions when you've been man-marked. So I'd have seen, okay, why was Kevin Maguire going out to cornerback to mark James Smith? Because James is so important for us. Why is number 12 come back to mark Groge? Because Groge is so important for us. Straight away, as a management team, you have thinking, and probably the players are thinking too, why are these lads on us? We're going to have to mix it up here. Bring them out to play. Like, James can play anywhere. Like, if he'd bring Kevin Maguire to midfield, no doubt James would have got on top of him. Kevin Maguire is a full back. Groge McKiernan's marking on number 12. If he'd bring him into the full back line, I don't think number 12 would have been that happy. I'm not saying that staying there for the whole game, but for periods of the game, just to make him feel uncomfortable, and to mix it up. Also, it give, as if James went out, it gives Paddy a chance to be really one-on-one inside. And I felt Paddy had to beat up his man all ends up. We just didn't get the ball. So I think it's something that we can definitely develop because James, Thomas, Groge, they're huge men. They're really important for us. And we can't let other teams dictate to us how them lads play their football. We need to start keep asking questions of the opposition because they're going to be marked men and because they are that good.
Absolutely bang on. I suppose at one stage as well, Jerry Smith was running forward with the ball. I think it was on the left side flank as he was playing, and I don't know whatever notion, maybe like the game plan we were trying, but he actually went backwards with the ball, and then I think he kicked over to Garode, and it was just lateral pass, and then we got snuffed out. Westmeath went up the other end of the pitch and scored a point from it. So as you have been rightly saying the last couple of minutes, like the tactics were just a bit. You'd wonder kind of what we were at times, and obviously, as you were saying, like we should have been utilising the players and the qualities and playing to the strengths of the players that we do have, Ronan. So it's I suppose you don't want to get too overly frustrated, but it's coming away from it. We should have utilised the strengths and the power of the players we have.
Yeah, well, like we were 2 points up when Thomas gets sent off, so we were still in a great position to win the game, even though I didn't feel we were playing as well as we can play.
Yeah.
So it's not negative at all. It's not negative. It's just ways to improve, I suppose, going forward. I felt that we didn't play our best football on Saturday last, and probably because Westmeath did such good homework, and we didn't seem to do anything about the homework that they did. Also, then, as I said to you last week, I felt that John Heslin and Ronan O'Toole were so important for Westmeath. I felt like during the game on Saturday, Heslin wasn't as near as involved as he was against Offaly. He scored 1 point from play. Killian was marking him for the majority of the game and did a really good job and a disciplined job where he was always by his side. He was always being Killian, just in his space.
You called that last week, yeah.
Ronan O'Toole, however, he was let have the freedom of the park,
and Ray Connellan too.
Yeah, but Connellan wasn't hurting us. Ronan O'Toole was really hurting us. Like, he scored 4 points from play in the first half and dropped one short. So he potentially could have had 5 points from play before we actually made a change to put Jason McLaughlin onto him. It was crazy. Like, he was brilliant against Offaly. He didn't actually score that much. He actually missed a few chances. But you could see the potential that he had. You couldn't let him dictate the game. And he dictated the game. He set up the goal. as well as scoring the 4 points from play. He was the lad who was solo on the ball, and he put the ball across to Luke Loughlin, I think it was.
Yeah.
He got in behind Porrick Faulkner and he caught it and he laid it back out to Dolan. So O'Toole is a class little player, and you can't let the likes of him just walk around and do what he wants, because he did, and those 4 points probably eventually hurt us in the end of the game.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct on that, I suppose. And Kieran Brady as well, the Arva man, like he must not be fully fit because he didn't feature in Saturday. Ronan, like would you know, could he potentially had a big say in the game if he was facing ready to play, I suppose.
Yeah, and like I said last week, like when Kieran played against Dublin in 2020, he, to be fair to him, was the man who was breaking the line as from the driving force from the half back line, and that was definitely something we didn't have. How often do we have the ball where the player ran up, stopped, turned, passed it back?
But that's
like to be fair to Kieran, he would run up, he'd try to run through that gap, and if he does get through that gap, if the next fella goes along with him, now we're going forward, and that's what Ronan Wallace was doing for Westmeath. He was trying to break that initial line, and once he did, there was lads supporting him, knowing that he would probably break the line, getting an overlapping and getting an easy pass coming next. We probably just didn't have that penetrative force coming from our half back line that was going to actually break the line, and lads knowing, okay, he is going to break the line, and when he does, I'm going to come with him. It was like when Cian used to play with us, you know, Cian was going to go past the first player
the whole time.
Yes, so you were thinking, okay, when he goes past him, I'm going to be going off him, so he can slip me the next ball, and I can put it over the bar, or I can pass it inside. If you have a player like that in your team, it's so invaluable because it allows you to get to the next step. As you said off air, how often do we go forward, stop, pass it back, pass it sideways? But even if we did pass it forward, it was never a fast pass. Apart from, I suppose, I shouldn't say never. The first 15 minutes, 10 minutes, we were really, really good. And we were moving the ball at pace. I can see Oisin Kieran score, came onto the ball at loads of pace. He just held up and he kicked over the bar lovely. We were initially moving really fast. But it definitely slowed down.
Were they afraid maybe to make mistakes as well, Ronan? Because obviously, like, don't get me wrong, like we talk with the coaching that goes into games, and maybe lads are maybe in case they do something wrong, they might get whipped off, and oh god, if I kick a bad ball into Paddy Lynch there and it goes astray and the Westmeath up the field, like maybe are lads that well coached and well drilled, Ronan, that you know they're nearly afraid to do things on the pitch? Is that the way it's gone to a degree?
I hope not. I hope not. I think it's football's kind of gone away from that a little bit.
Hopefully, yeah.
So I'm hoping not, but there definitely was times where we could have played the ball, and it was on. We just didn't back ourselves to do it, and as a result, it just became ponderous. It became passive, and it wasn't as penetrative as we would have liked. I'd have loved to seen Stephen Smith playing, for the simple reason is he works well with Paddy Lynch and he works well with James. He's always looking to get them a kick pass inside. And if you have a player who is always looking to get somebody on the ball inside, it really helps the inside line. I don't know if we had that from our team on Saturday last. I felt Stephen's absence. You know, he came on, scored a great point. It's probably quite hard to come on in Croke Park and really get to grips with the game. But he always looks for the best opportunity for the inside line, and that is invaluable. Somebody who's looking forward and trying to put Paddy Lynch onto the ball, top of the D, or for James Smith, or wherever it is. We lacked that, I felt, on Saturday last. And even, as I said, all with that, like, as we didn't play it to 100%, we were probably 70, 80%. We still should have won the game and probably could have won the game. Sending off ended up been 2 points up. It was crucial, really, because they took momentum then, and they just followed through. They scored 1-3 or 1-4 without reply to finish the game.
What was your take on the sending off? Obviously, you know, it was Tomas Galligan, and I know, like, obviously we all know, but Tomas, he's a tough lad, and I suppose he takes kind of no nonsense on the field. But you know, the stage of the game we were in, you know, it was, as you said, we were leading the game, and it was a critical point in the game. But it was like, for my, like, I could see the instant fairly clearly. It was a clear sending off, Ronan.
At the time, I thought, yeah, it was. It was just a moment of he wanted to hit. It was Ronan O'Toole. It probably was a bit too late to hit him. He had scored 5 points already, but it was probably a moment where he went to hit him a good shoulder. Ronan O'Toole actually, if you look at it closely, he actually lost control of the ball, which changed his body position totally, and he ended up clattering him. And it was a big 6'4" man hitting a little 5'8" fella. Never going to look good either. If he had to do the same to a 6'1" or 2" fella, you'd be thinking he's fine. It's just a bit of a shoulder. He was smaller than him. It kind of caught him around the head area. It was just unlucky. I felt so sorry for Thomas because those kind of things can happen in an instant. It's okay looking back at a replay. Like replay always shows it in slow motion, which makes it look an awful lot worse. In real time, Thomas obviously was going to give him a shoulder. Your man didn't catch the ball clean, which he should have. I don't know how he ended up kind of spilling it. And as he spilled it, his body went forward, which put his head forward, and he ended up getting clattered on the head. It's just unlucky. Yeah, it was unlucky. You don't want anyone to be hit on the head, but at the same time, I don't think Thomas was going to absolutely kill him. He was going to give him a good shoulder as you would. Just mistimed, unfortunately.
I suppose obviously kind of touching on Thomas Galligan, and he's probably been one of Cavan's best players the last couple of years. Ronan, but like, were you maybe disappointed we didn't get more out of Thomas? Where he was kind of playing on the pitch, or was it just the way the game was going? We couldn't utilise him enough.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the way the game went. Thomas's game is based on catching kickouts and driving forward. That's what Thomas is good at. Obviously, you need space usually to drive forward, and you need kickouts to come out to you to catch them. Neither of those things were available to Thomas on Saturday. There was no space to run into. Westmeath were sitting back waiting for us, and there was very few long kickouts for Thomas to actually go and catch. So as a result, his strengths, we were playing a game that where his strengths weren't being utilised or exposed to. Westmeath cleverly didn't kick the ball out to us. We didn't press up on them. Thomas then, as a result, was just another player on the ground. When we had the ball, like, there was no space for Thomas to be like, if you think back to the Tipperary National League final, and any games that Thomas has been really, really good in, he's been driving forward into these spaces where there's a bit of ground ahead of him. There was no ground ahead of him in Croke Park the other day. Number 22, Sam Duncan fella, was hopping off him for the majority of the game. And besides all that, there still was 10, 11 Westmeath lads in the defensive position, even if he had to have got away from number 22. So, no, he wasn't that involved. I think the game didn't suit him, if I'm totally honest. But that's what I meant by earlier on in the conversation, that I felt that we didn't, as a probably a setup, didn't set ourselves up to make Westmeath kick the ball out. If we win a few kickouts and Thomas wins a kick out and he's running straight at the goal, he is so hard stopped. But there was no kickouts coming out. And as I said, it didn't really suit him. And it suits Groge that way too. So that's why I feel that had we really pushed, had we done what Galway did to Derry, where Shane Walsh, I can see Shane Walsh, I can see Comer, I can see Finnerty, they were actually running sideways, hands out, waving their hands at Oran Lynch. Like, I can only imagine how distracting it was, and him trying to look for a short kick out. With the result, he just kicked it long, and Galway manhandled Conor Glass, and the next fella went up. Galway dominated, because Derry are so reliant on the short kick out, and I feel that Westmeath are heavily reliant on it too. And that was the point I was trying to make to you last Thursday, that it looked like a training game against Offaly, because they were just chipping the ball short, and away they'd run. They'd run the whole length of the pitch and they'd get a score. And that's why I was so fearful that if they did that against us, I would strongly I'd fear that we wouldn't be able to stop them over time, because that gets very hard over time, running after players from distance. And eventually, I suppose, it did break us down. So yeah, I just feel that in our setup, that was a big blunder by us. We didn't play to our strength. We actually played to theirs.
Completely. And it's funny, Ronan, like, it was a funny sort of game. Even, I know, obviously when Pork Faulkner got the goal, and it takes a full back to kind of use the initiative to get up and score a goal, which is probably quite alarming as well. But like even after we got the goal, Ronan, it was a funny sort of game. You really did feel when we kept going forward, it looked like we could get a goal. Of course, Kieran Martin got the winning goal, but like even when we got the goal, it still didn't look like we could push on and win the game either.
Yeah. As I said, it just we looked to be playing the game on their terms, unfortunately, even when we were ahead. So I was fearful, yeah. We did say last week as well that I felt we needed to be 3 or 4 ahead before Kieran Martin and Jerry can come off the bench. I just was like, they are quality players, and they have been over the last 7, 8, 9 years. To be fair to them two lads, like when Kieran Martin got the ball, there was nothing on. There was barely even a point on, and he ran in parallel to the goals, and then pretty much hit a contact, and then went straight perpendicular, straight at our goal, and a brilliant goal to be fair to him. Absolute brilliant goal. And I've seen a goal actually since on Twitter where he scored one, and I think it was a fresher game for DIT, where he pretty much ran the whole end of the pitch. And again, lads kind of hopping off him.
He's a good bowler.
Yeah, but he was a lot slimmer back then, to be fair to him. He scored a cracking goal. But he's always been a great player, Kieran Martin. He always has. Like, you remember playing against him a few times, and even watching him against Dublin a few years gone by. He was a massive handful, to be fair to him. And Jerry is another quality player. So we needed to be ahead. They were bringing on 2 quality players onto their team to make it stronger for the last 15, 20 minutes. We needed to be the 3 or 4 points ahead, not a man down.
The goal, Ronan, like, and obviously you've kind of played everywhere in your career, like, and obviously how was he even let in for it really either? Because like I know obviously there's a few maybe token tackles kind of thrown in on as well, like, but like to be, as you were rightly saying there, to be allowed that space to go to perpendicular to sidewards, absolutely everything, and just nearly a clear route to goal, like to be allowed that sort of space for us to concede the goal. I don't know how was even that happen.
Yeah, it should have been a turnover, because when he was coming in, he was running initially to 3 of our players, and when he went into the 3 of them, as I said, he went inside, and he just turned perpendicular, and he ran straight at the goal following that. He should never have been able to get out of there. I know, in saying that, he probably is 15 stone of muscle. He looked like he was, and so he mightn't be that easy to stop. But you still have to think. I think you still have to stop him. Yeah, you can't let him. If anywhere he goes back out, he doesn't go through. And that was the crucial score, really. That put the nail in our coffin. There was only one winner after that. Even though I suppose Conor Madden had a chance, but a brilliant block from Kevin Maguire, absolutely brilliant. Because that ball, that was one of few balls that went into James Smith. And if you look closely, it's James's hand who flicks the ball lovely to Conor Madden. The 2 Westmeath boys were up. James flicked it straight to Conor. Conor gets it. To be fair to Kevin Maguire actually jumped with James Smith.
Yes.
He was so quick. When he landed the ground, he pretty much landed and dived and blocked at the same time.
Yeah.
He was just so committed to not allowing us to get a goal. Yeah. But it didn't feel at the game. It didn't feel, once the goal went in, it didn't feel like we were going to win it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, just unfortunate. But then I suppose on another day, Conor Madden's shot might have went in, and it would have been a draw game heading to extra time, which would have been fantastic. We get our man back and and suppose reevaluate what way we're playing the game, and you could potentially then move up and press up and start playing to our strengths.
Yeah, I suppose kind of were you maybe surprised by maybe the management team's urgency? Like, I know obviously Mickey Graham, we know how astute and smart he is, and I know we brought on kind of Luke Fortune early into the second half, but I think we were kind of trailing the game at that stage. And as you were saying, started as Cormac Riley and Conor Madden to come on in the last 2 minutes, and no better man than Mickey Graham to pull a rabbit out of a hat, like, and it just seemed too little, too late.
Yeah, no, like Mickey's done a brilliant job with Cavan, like brilliant Ulster title back in 2020, and even this year, I suppose, just narrowly losing out to Donegal, winning Division 4, getting to a Tailteann Cup final. It probably felt like I was definitely happy to see CL6 coming on and Martin Riley coming on. As you said, those last 2 lads, it's going to be very hard for them to actually do anything in 3 or 4 minutes of football, to be fair to them. They probably needed Conor Madden and Cormac probably needed at least 10 minutes to try and do something. But no, to be fair to Mickey, like he's done a great job, and like, you can't go about, I suppose, questioning his managerial skills. He's done an excellent job in wherever he's gone, and he knows best. But you would have liked to see them lads get a little bit longer to just kind of show what they had.
Absolutely, and obviously Conor Madden was a great man for the goals over the years, but it was just so unfortunate it didn't go in. But it was just, I suppose you make your own luck, and I suppose obviously I think Mickey Graham was talking to Irish News after the game, and I think he was kind of looking into his future now for the next couple of days, and obviously like let the dust settle. And I suppose what would be your thoughts on that? Like my thoughts would definitely be definitely another year. I think he's warranted and deserved another year at the helm of it all, Ronan. But look, if he has a young family and bits and pieces going on elsewhere, it's a huge commitment.
It's definitely a massive commitment. I can only imagine what it's like. No, I'd like to see him stay put, and I'd like to see all that group stay together. I said to you last week, they've been brilliant. Like, they've given us great years as supporters. And okay, Saturday was a blip, but a few tweaks and we win the Tailteann Cup, and it's a different game. It's still a solid group of players.
Mm-hmm.
I still think, even though we've just lost to Westmeath, I still think we would beat an awful lot of the quarterfinalists that were in the Sam Maguire. Mm-hmm. So we're not a million miles away. We probably need to resurrect another forward or two to help our forward line. Definitely, the introduction of James Smith into our forward line has really is given us a different dimension, that we can actually kick longer ball and win longer ball. The Paddy Lynch has been brilliant this year. As I said to you last week, I'd love to see Ocean Brady come to his milk, because he is, from seeing him at club level, he is a quality player. Connor Smith's probably another fella who's been riddled with injuries from Killygarry, actually. And again, you'd love to see him get a full run at it, because he's lively, he's exciting, he's exactly what the supporter wants to come and see. So it's very, very marginal changes that need to be made for Cavan. You wouldn't like to see too many of the lads moving on. Hopefully they'll all stay together. Hopefully Mickey will stay at the helm and just learn from the little mistakes that I suppose that we made in the final. And as I said, I do believe that they're in brilliant strength and conditioning shape. They have great players. We probably just need to make sure we utilise the best, especially our best players, utilise our best player strengths and plan your game around that. So base your team set up around your best player strengths. That is Groge McKiernan and going onto the ball, making sure he's going to get shots off. That is making sure that teams kick out the ball, because we're huge. I don't think there's as big a team in the country as us. So those simple things will make a massive difference to Cavan. And as I said, hopefully they all stay together with Mickey at the helm. And I think we'll be in an All-Ireland quarterfinal next year, all going well.
Fingers crossed, Ronan. Obviously, the aforementioned Oisin Brady, I think he was on the 26th. He might have been in the back room, or not even the back room, but like the extra 30, their extra players. And obviously Thomas Edward Donoghue and Keevan O'Reilly was like in the extra panel, and probably three lads that you probably could have been doing it on the bench.
Yeah, well, luckily they're all young, so they all have great time ahead of them, and these are development years for them. So when they do get their chances, that they're ready to go. And it takes, as you've seen even with Conor Callahan, it took him probably 2, 3, 4 years to actually break onto the team. And when he did, he was unstoppable. So you're hoping that the likes of those lads you just mentioned, when they do get onto the team, they're going to be ready and raring to go. They'll have all the strength and conditioning behind them. And it's only a matter of them showing off their talents then. So, yeah, obviously you'd love to see them, but again, Mickey and the management team know best. They know who's in form and training. You just like to see those lads coming to their milk and I suppose take it to the field.
Absolutely, Ronan. I suppose looking ahead now, it's the Cavan Club Championship coming up ahead now, so I suppose it's really important now. Obviously, if Mickey Graham does stay about that, so him and the management team gets as many kind of club championship games now as possible, because it'll be great to inherit obviously a few more players. And obviously we've seen James Brady, he top scorer of the championship last year for Rammer. I don't think he had a whole pile of interest, but even to get the likes of him or some of the other Rammer lads into the Cavan setup next year, and I suppose can keep developing these players, because really, Ronan, we have a superb bit of talent in the county. We just need to start utilising it.
Yeah, if you add 2 or 3 lads from this year's club championship to your panel, that's going to strengthen your panel and potentially strengthen your team, that's fantastic. And you're looking at, if we played Armagh in the morning, I wouldn't fear it. They're in our quarterfinal. They could have won. They lost in penalties. We played Derry in the morning, I wouldn't fear them. If we played Clare in the morning, I wouldn't fear them. Even if we played Galway in the morning, I wouldn't necessarily fear them. I know they're a very, very good side. So you're well able to compete with those teams. It's just adding players all the time to your panel to make your panel stronger. And there probably is 2 or 3 lads out there who can definitely improve the Cavan setup and the Cavan panel. I'm not saying necessarily the starting 15, but they can definitely improve the standards and improve the panel, and that would push the team on even further.
Absolutely. I suppose you're looking forward to the club championship this year. I know we were touching on it briefly last week on the podcast. So obviously the senior championship, the intermediate and junior, I think it's due to start at the end of July, start of August. So I suppose you're looking forward to maybe just relaxing and going to a couple of games.
Yeah. Like, I suppose you don't really think. Well, I don't really think about it until Cavan are out. It's always been my mentality is focus on Cavan first, and when Cavan loses, then you start considering the club. But the club championship, yeah, it'll be interesting. I haven't even necessarily really thought about it a whole while, but as you said, it's nice just to go and watch matches and just, I suppose, to see different lads playing who have maybe played for Cavan, playing for their club, and realizing how good they actually are in the club championship. Yeah.
Absolutely. I suppose to round it up, Ronan, who would be, I suppose, obviously the Cavan games you did get, and obviously watching the videos online and the maybe games you didn't make, but who would be maybe your Cavan player this season?
I don't think you can look much further past Jared Smith, to be honest. Like, you have your Paddy Lynch, you have your James Smith, but I think consistently, to be fair to him, he's been brilliant, Jared, in all the games. He's been chipping in with points. He's been leading the group. I think he's been a great player this year for Cavan, to be fair to him. He's obviously a past pupil of Virginia College, and not no way biased, but I just think, yeah, he's been excellent, and he's 28 years of age now. He's really leading that team along with a whole load of other lads. But he has quality to show with it too.
Yeah, I think a lot of Cavan people would echo what you're after saying, Ronan. I suppose who's going to win the Sam Maguire?
Oh, I'd love to see Galway win it. Even though you're wearing a Kerry jersey, but I think Kerry. But I'd love to see Galway win it. I'd love to see. I think Kerry will definitely win it anyway. It's only a matter of when. When Galway now get to it, Comer and Walsh, they've been around a long time. I played against both them lads. That shows you how long they've been around, and their quality, like, their absolute quality. Is like Walsh is you pay the admission fee just to watch his skills. I know McCluskey did a brilliant job on him the last day, but he's so talented. His frees were exceptional, left and right foot. And then Comer, I would not like to mark him. I don't know who would, because he looks like a rugby player playing football. He's so physically strong. And to be fair to him, like, psychologically, Brendan Rodgers scores 2 points in the first 15 minutes of the game. His man-to-man marker. Rodgers playing full back, he's playing full forward. Imagine where your head would be at if the full back's scoring 2 points and you haven't barely touched the ball. He came so strong, and he took the bull by the horns. Like, he left foot a point to get it going. Was a great score. Just before halftime, wins the ball. Probably could have marked. I think he could have actually. Just inside the D, spins to the right, spins to the left. Sorry, kicks it over at the right. There you are. Halftime. It's 4 points. Well, it's 4 points to 3 on the official scoreboard, but it's actually 4 points apiece. And he's after scoring 2, even though after 15 minutes his own man had scored 2 points. And then he gets the goal in the second half, where it's a typical Comer goal. I'm just running it out. Rodgers overcommits. He's too powerful. You're never going to get back at him, and back at the net. So you'd love to see, or I'd love to see, Comer and Walsh winning All Ireland. I think this will probably be their best opportunity.
I have to ask you about the 2 big instances from the weekend. Obviously, Hawkeye not working for the Galway-Derry game. Obviously, it was a clear point, and Sean O'Shea's kick to win against the Dubs, kicking into the hill. So, whichever one you want to talk about first.
Yeah, well, Hawkeye is definitely an interesting one, because you wondered, did it affect any of our scores or any of Westmeath scores? it definitely affected. I seen on Twitter, it affected Conor Glass at a point that wasn't counted in the first half. For Derry, and Derry are a kind of team that need to be ahead of you. So if Derry were 5-4 up at halftime as opposed to 4 apiece, that's a totally different mentality for Derry, because they've always been ahead. Now they're winning at halftime where it was actually level, and they had actually played all the football. So Hawkeye, probably has a lot of questions to answer. I wouldn't like to see it coming back, to be honest, until it's totally ready to go and it doesn't have any errors in it. Wherever they want to trial that, but I don't think they could be trialing at All-Ireland semi-final or Tailteann Cup final stage. I think it's too important of games, and I like the idea of it. I definitely like the idea of it, but it want to be working 100% before it comes back. The Sean O'Shea's was brilliant. It was just great to see it, and you're hoping that when he put it down that he would strike it. And no better man, to be fair to him, than Sean O'Shea. I remember seeing him here again. That just shows how good Cavan are. Cavan playing Kerry in Breffni Park, and Darren McFeely was doing actually a great job marking him. But every time that Kerry got fouled, the ball was put on the ground, and Sean O'Shea just nonchalantly, reminds you of Ronan Carlin, just clipped the ball over the bar, and it just kept the scoreboard ticking. And he's a class player, to be fair to him. Himself and Clifford, no more than Comer and Walsh. They're brilliant. The only thing is they're younger, so I figure they will eventually win one, if not numerous All-Irelands. It's just I don't think maybe Walsh and Comer might get another chance as good again. But what a point! Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Great for the GAA. I really enjoyed the weekend of football. I usually do, but yeah, I really enjoyed it.
No, it was a savage game. I think there would have been a lot of sore Cavan heads watching that Dublin Kerry game, but it's the Sean O'Shea point probably sobered up a lot of people. I have to ask you, Darren McFeely, you're obviously you're after touching on him. He did do a tremendous job with Sean O'Shea that day out, and I think he's back from his travels hopefully soon enough. All going well. What a man to bring back in if he gets fitting well.
Yeah. If Darren's on first, I'm sure Cavan will have him in a heartbeat. Yeah, and again, more than Kieran Brady, if he was playing in the half back line, I can guarantee he'd be driving forward, he'd be breaking lines. And those types of players are invaluable to a team. So, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be good to see him back now with Chris Law. I think he'd have a huge impact on them. And then if he hangs around for longer, then hopefully he's willing to commit his time to Cavan, because, as I said, that Cavan team are in a really good spot. They're all at the peak of their powers. They're at the right age. They're in the right physical condition. And it's just about, I suppose, getting a little bit more astute and using our qualities to the best of their ability. And if we do that, we will be really, really hard bet. And as I said, I wouldn't, if we were in a quarterfinal this year, I wouldn't have feared any of them. So that's definitely a good sign going forward.
Could be the missing link, Ronan. Could be the missing link.
Hopefully.
So yeah, looking forward to seeing hopefully Dara play in the Cavan Club Championship this year. It'd be great to see him back. But Ronan Flanagan, thanks a million for joining me this week. It was a fairly down-hour podcast, but hopefully now with the Cavan Club Championship it can lift our spirits a bit. But it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by Orgarech.com and Atak.ie. Is Road Coach J-Mac podcast. Get 15% off on Orgarech.com and get the best games, clothes, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack-minded. Ronan Flanagan, thank you very, very much.
No problem at all.